existing business. This is how this research shall answer to Thai creative economy through the use of wisdom, national identity, and cross-disciplinary. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Attapon from Chulalongkorn University to deliver his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you, the QS Totally Art Summit and Silapakon University, for having me here today. My name is Attapon Ponglauhapan. I am now teaching in the Fine and Applied Art Department at Chulalongkorn University. The topic that I would like to discuss today is a part of my ongoing research, and it is part of teaching method in our faculty. The topic here today is the fashion design and creative economy in Thailand. Design and culture have always been closely interrelated, but in many instances, design is flaunted as the true measure of culture. There are basic ideas related to culture, the scope of heritage, which divided in tangible and intangible. Cultural creativity product can inherit culture, market culture, and establish the representative cultural image. The cultural creativity industry is the combination between local actions based on the thinking of globalization. Cultural creativity industry is one kind of creative industry, combining cultures, economics, technologies, and humanities, which helps to promote the attached value of products. We are converting cultural connotation to creative elements. Creativity is deeply embedded in a country's cultural context. It is the same as culture appears in all countries, and they both represent certain identity. This might reflect in traditional costume, food, architecture, textiles, atmosphere, language, and many others. It is known that fashion is part of the people's lifestyle. It represents culture, tradition, way of life, and attitude of the people. Nowadays, fashion industry becomes more complicated since its first start in the past. It was once a dress that divided people into different hierarchy. However, fashion is now the medium in telling others who you are. What you wear usually reflects who you are. You still want to express something through fashion. One may try to choose the shoes or accessories the best fit them according to different preferences. Developing a fashion brand at the present is quite a hard mission, since the designer or the brand manager actually is almost anyone who wants to create a brand. Have to think more about how to create a global attention while keeping their individuality as clear as it's possible. Many fashion brands now make use of culture into their brand identity, but only those with clear and strong image will survive and be able to appear in an international market, such as Dolce & Gabbana, who represents the Italian culture, Calvin Klein, who able to capture the New York modern atmosphere, or Issey Miyake, who able to communicate Japanese avant-garde in the 1990s to the rest of the world. Fashion and creative industry operate at the crossroad between art, business, and technology. It is a strategic position to link creativity, innovation at a time when culture-based creativity is an essential feature of business. Designers throughout the world has adopted an idea of creative economy by presenting their unique design along with their nation's aesthetic. In Thailand, culture has been one of the main focus in developing fashion products. There is a trend in creating fashion brand by merging Thai identity into an international fashion design. The goal of the research is to integrate 3 frameworks that act as a guideline for building a fashion brand from cultural heritage in Thailand. At the present, several Thai government departments is promoting the development in cultural related products. This happened first since the One Tambon, One Product policy in 2001. The program aimed to support locally made and market products of each of Thailand's 7,250 sub-districts, drawing its inspiration from Japan's successful One Village, One Product program. However, the program aims only to develop products, not to build a certain brand for each sub-district. The most of the product haven't yet developed into a brand. As you can see that it is crucial to develop a brand that represents certain culture and international fashion style. This would help alleviate a product into a brand that will meet consumer needs and last longer in the market. Significant frameworks are discussed in order to integrate Thai local culture heritage into a fashion brand. There are 3 key elements that I would like to propose in order to help developing the fashion brand from Thai culture, such as the cultural design, the brand building, and the fashion design concept. The first one that I would like to talk about is the cultural design. According to the research paper from Dong Thai Lin in 2007, it is obvious that culture is the valuable asset belonging to a certain group of norms and people. Also, designing culture into products will become a design trend in the global market. There are cultural layers according to each cultural object, as the outer, the mid, and the inner level, and each culture and each layer suits different approaches in product design. Each target group needs different approach of culture. There might be those who want to distinguishingly show their character. The group of people might want to use product from culture that doesn't need any interpretation. In contrast, those who tend to be minimal and modern style may want to use the product that is based on analyze and interpret. The product might project only some part of distorted culture as a color or texture. In order to design using culture, designers have to be able to select the most suitable cultural approach to communicate with the target. The second one I would like to discuss here is the branding concept. There are 2 main factors in creating a brand, such as a core identity and the extended identity. The core identity represents the essence of the brand and contains the association that are more likely to remain constant over time. Ultimately, as a result of the core identity, elements make the brand sustainable, unique, and valuable. The elements of the core identity remain more resistant to change than the elements of the extended identity. The core identity of a brand should be any fashion style relating to some history of fashion, since it represents the permanent character. And the extended identity shall be any culture in Thailand using specific cultural design method. The last part that the designer or those who want to create a brand from local culture have to realize and find the best solution to integrate it with the Western modern fashion style and fashion history. Designers are challenged to foster cultural diversity through localization of products. The phase of globalization is very important for a designer to look back at its roots, observe and interpret design process in order to achieve the fresh design that suits most at the present. Researching international fashion history will help designers speak to their customer internationally. This is because most of the fashion market in the world today rely mostly on Western fashion culture. Then, researching background in fashion styles and history of dressing is crucial to develop new garments. It is important for Thai designers who look forward to combine cultural heritage with international fashion style to merge these 2 topics together. For example, in order to create an ethnic fashion brand, the core identity should focus mainly on the Western fashion period, such as the 1970s Bohemian. Then the extended identity may be a culture from any Hill tribe in the northern part of Thailand. The result is the combination between Northern Thai cultural heritage with Western 1970s. Another example is developing a fashion brand with core identity that derived from the 1990s minimal style, combining with contemporary culture in Bangkok. The result will be the mixture of contemporary Thai culture in Bangkok that reflects 1990s style. In conclusion, creating a brand at the present is quite complex. As the world becoming more and more globalization, designers have to please the consumer as well as sending strong design message to them. It is how to stay in globalization context with local spirit. In order to achieve that, I propose an integrated framework for designers, including cultural design, branding, and fashion history. This integrated framework will help designers to understand and analyze different local culture. By researching the fashion style that's suitable for certain culture, the designer will be able to pick international fashion style that goes along with the local culture. Then the designer is able to select proper core and extended identity to best suit their brand character. The core and extended identity will reflect the international and local character in fashion respectively. Then the cultural design concept will help designer in selecting proper method using the culture, whether it should be appearing boldly or only some angle of it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. You can take your seat on the stage. I would also like to invite the other speakers that just came to take their seat. And then we will do Q&A. As moderator, I'll ask the first question, also to refresh our memory briefly. And after that, you're very welcome to ask your own questions or share comments as you please. Do we have, yes, you have a microphone as well. Wherever you'd like to sit, feel comfortable. Thank you again for the presentations. Yes, my first question is for Professor Pankaj. You mentioned that you have a school with no exams and no departments. Did I understand that correctly? And my question, that there must be some challenges to not having exams and not having departments as well. It sounds like utopia, but there must be some challenges as well. I would assume there's always pros and cons. Could you comment on that? And then could we pass him the
mic? As I said, that this idea of alternative education started by Rabindranath Tagore. In the beginning, it was like that. Unfortunately, since we became from ashram to school to college to now university, and then there is a common body called UGC, University Grant Commission, then we have, fallen into that trap of ultimately we have to conduct exams. So in that way, I have to accept that we are not following the original what it started off because of various reasons, One of the reasons is if you don't conduct exam, if you don't have this thing, then a student after passing out, if they want to study abroad or other colleges, then they are deprived of that. We tried to resist this, but if they want to pursue in their education in other streams, they want, this is so where is your certificate, where is this thing? So then you feel that, you are trapped, you are depriving a student. So ultimately we are conducting exams and this kind of thing, but still the idea of, minimize the assessment thing, minimize the pressure of exam that we try to follow. That is the main thing. And interdisciplinary thing is still continues, but still again I say that we also have now department. With time it changed, and as I said, in India, because of various reasons, we are finding it difficult to retain our original, that great philosophy, where in the West now this kind of liberal ideas are taking more accepted and this thing, and we are actually lagging that. So I think we have to reinvent ourselves and try to continue with that philosophy. So that way, I said in the original this idea was there. So we try to retain its philosophy and spirit, but somewhere we have to compromise as far as the exams are concerned.
I see. Thank you very much for that answer. Now my question to Dr. Naj. You talked a lot about, of course, scent and that part. And you talked about Thai fumigation techniques. The first thing that came to mind when you mentioned this, I think in Thai massage and various treatments, scent is used as well. So in addition to perhaps using it as memory, perhaps you could comment on some other areas in which scent fits into various forms of arts.
Various form of art. I recently heard about a project for I'm not sure, but I think it's part of the creative district organized by TCDC. They have this person who is a scent designer, I guess, and she's developing an art project also. It's called something like The Scents of Bangkok, by mapping Bangkok with areas, different areas with different scents. So when people visit different places or parts of Bangkok, they will smell the scents or have the sense of this place is a kind of certain scent sources, if that makes sense. For example, as I researched for this study, there's a community in China, Chinatown in Bangkok, where it's part of the shop house, which is a kind of architecture in Southeast Asia, and the community sells those incense for the different Chinese or Thai ceremonies, and now that community is demolished as part of the train, the rail train project. So that area it's now demolished, and so the sense of the place and the story of that community is also disappeared. And now if you go there, you won't be able to sense the smell of those incense anymore. So I guess what this perfume designer is trying to do is pretty much the same thing, by extracting scents of each different places and place it in maps of Bangkok. It's a new way of exploring Bangkok, if that makes sense. And they also wanted to develop in the kind of art project as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And then my question to Dr. Atapon. When you talked about Thai fashion and Thai fashion brands, the first thing that came to my mind was the Jim Thompson brand, which is that a kind of example that you are talking about, or is that too limited, or are they just one-off and you want to create hundreds? How do they fit in the context of what you were talking about?
Actually, the Jim Thompson is the best example in my study, but I didn't mention here because there are many other local who try to produce their local related products. Actually, this kind of example is a good combination between contemporary Thai culture that can go international.
And in your mind, what is the secret of a brand like Jim Thompson? What's the best practice that everybody should look at?
There is a theory in developing fashion and lifestyle brand. The brand have to be able to tell a story, a specific story that is related to its root. So this is the part that most Thai brands that are not be able to become global. They do not have their secret story or their exotic storytelling.
I see. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the floor at this time? We have a bit of time. Do I see hands in the... Yes, there's a gentleman in the back. Please identify yourself before you ask your question.
Thank you very much. My name is Yasraf from Indonesia. So I'm interested to what my friend of India said before about every person is a genius. In terms of art or design, we always, relate geniusness with creativity. And creative thing, we always try to make a kind of measurement or a judgment. So we can say that this is creative one and this is not a creative one. And when you say that every person is a genius, my question is how to make a kind of measurement, kind of judgment about this one is genius, this one's not genius. Thank you.
I think I understood your question, that how you judge who is genius or who is not a genius. In my view, what Tagore meant was, it's overall observation that every individual has a unique quality. Now, this is a challenge of any institution to provide him that kind of environment where he can flower. It's almost like institution has a challenging role to provide a situation, environment, facility, knowledge, whatever, that person finds its full potential. Now, due to, especially in developing countries, most of the education in general is not education for life or in general. Education become a professional training right from the beginning because of insecurity of mind or whatever reason. All the institutions have become like a business center. And there is a competition that my students get 100% first class first, or this kind of a rat race. And that creates a kind of a pressure and burden to the students, and in the process, they lose the charm and the interest of learning. And because of that, and they become disinterested. I was one of the most useless students when I was studying. I used to find that I am useless person because I used to hate where I used to study. And luckily, my mother advised me. She knew that I am good at art, and then she said, and they were teaching in a university in that place where I was studying, but that place was very, I can feel when, still I tell them when I come here, I think that my all creativity or anything, it just switches off. I don't know why. So I decided to go to this place, Shantiniketan, and took this art course. And first thing I felt when there is no pressure of exam that time, exam numbers, they're not used to matter. And for me in education, the biggest fear was coming for the exam. Everything I will lose the interest of studying as long as if I know I have to appear for the exam. So that was the biggest fear. And then when I come here, it was like a learning. You learn with you while playing, innovating. So is this learning? I felt first time that like if you put a duckling into the water, it starts flowing. So I said, oh, this is learning, this is education, fantastic. And since then, there is no looking back. I thought, oh, I became a valuable person, I became professor. And beginning I was feeling I'm useless, I'm going to be nowhere. So this is what an institution can do it.
Thank you for sharing the personal story. Any other questions to the audience at this time? There's a gentleman in the front raising his hand. I will get a microphone to you.
Thank you. I've already introduced myself this morning, right? I don't have to introduce again. I would like to ask this question to Dr. Naj, right? It's very interesting that you are talking about science and art, about sense, but in your research, your students, are they all science students?
No.
No. And if there are art students, what is the standards of science they are in, the qualification for science? Because we know that artists and the designers, they are not scientists, most of them, right? and then we feel, we are able to feel. You smell, and then and you say, this is interesting, and that is not. Okay, but that is in the realms of the science, where they will do experiments and, to get the right sense. And then, as you said, that in Bangkok, you are having a kind of master plan where you go to one district, you will smell something else, and then on. That is very interesting. That is actually the advanced creative economy. But where is the elements of science that comes into art? That's I would like to know.
Can I rephrase the question? I think the question is, to what extent does scientific knowledge enter the artistic endeavor of what you're trying to do? How much science do you know? I mean, I can send email or I can do computer programming, right? Those are two different levels.
How much science
Is
do
that a
I
good
know?
way of formulating?
Actually, I have to say that science and me is not best friend, but it actually started from personal interest in this, particular experience of smell, and I noticed that there haven't been many examples of visual arts that can combine other perception to their artwork. So my fundamental is from visual arts, and I wonder when I go to museums that we can look, but that's the only thing, and we have to perceive from what we see. And so what if, and also it's what the artists show us. We want you to see this and sense our message of this and this and that, but what if art is freer than that? If you have some sort of, like for example, as I use the smell, that's why I asked the audience when I have presented this one before, that what kind of memory or thoughts that you have when you see these visual arts and then you have this sense of smell. And I get different personal answers from that. And it kind of, for me, it kind of opened the minds of the audiences of visual art does not have to be limited to just what you see, or I don't know, maybe some kind of arts like installation would allow you to be inside the place, but what if there are sort of medium that could trigger something else to your experience of art? Would that be different? I'm just trying to find, I guess, alternative ways to experience art. So that's require me to research a little bit on the science part of what else can we do with perceiving something or appreciate art, basically. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience at this time? If not, allow me to ask a kind of closing question to all three of the panelists. I was once having beers with an artist who was very grumpy, and he was telling me many things, and one of them was that the artist essentially invented entrepreneurship. An artist is a natural entrepreneur because he needs to put together projects, he needs to take risks, things like that. So perhaps could you comment a little bit on how art education prepares a person as an entrepreneur? And also in engineering, for instance, people talk a lot about nurturing entrepreneurial skills. Perhaps for the non-in-depth art education people here, how does art education nurture skills that are also valuable as an entrepreneur in your life? Or is that too complicated a question? Sure, yeah, that's, I think, a critical part. Yeah.
I think this is a very valid question, that after studying, you have to stand up and face the world and be independent. Most of the arts colleges have their own ways. For example, like I was born in an arts college and then studied in different places, and including in England at the Royal College. So I will give you the example about these things which is highly organized in England. So in Royal College, there used to be a kind of a workshop. Gallery people or artist people used to come and take a workshop, how to deal with galleries. So that is one way of, if you want to be an out and out professional artist, then you have to research on the galleries. Like for galleries, there are galleries who specialize on printmaking, some galleries who specialize in watercolor, some galleries specialize in oil paintings, some galleries specialize in contemporary and alternative art and new media art. So that was a very interesting workshop. These workshops helps, first to how to approach your professional life. And the other things are, you get a job in arts college or engineering college, and you teach, and then you have a 50% job responsibility and 50% as a practicing artist. So that way, I think institutions do this kind of workshops to how to manage your future in a way you want it.
Thank you. If you don't want to comment, it's fine as well. I think we're running out of time. So then we leave it with that comment, and we leave the rest for discussions during coffee. We might have a fairly short coffee break, so I would encourage you to quickly go have some drinks outside, and then we will resume, I don't think exactly at 3:50, but very close to that. Yeah, after this is the last session. So thank you very much. Applause, please, for our panelists and presenters.
Give talk and go back to your seats, and at the end of after the fourth one, there are four, I will ask all four to come back in front for discussion. Okay? The first speaker this afternoon then in this panel is Professor Raymond Yap, who is with the Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts in Singapore. Thank you.
Sorry? Okay, sure. Mine is 10 minutes, very fast. Okay. Okay, good afternoon. First of all, I just would like to say thank you, Sipakong University in the Total Arts Summit for inviting me here. Call it disruptive innovation in art and design. Do we put in the 21st century or something? Okay. Okay, the first slide, we put Marshall Lu Shon. Oh, sorry, there's another monitor. Okay. Shown or displayed in a new artistic context, ready-made were indifference and independence from the then aesthetic criteria. Questions such as, is that original? Can the work be unique? When is an object an art object? Are still being discussed today. Accepting Lu Shon's choice as an artistic gesture implies that we validate a concept and enter an artistic rather than aesthetic relationship with the objects. As Susan Sontag said, Interpretation, last not, of course, always prevail. In fact, a great deal of today's art may be understood as motivated by a flight from interpretation. To avoid interpretation, art may become parody, or it may become non-art. The flight from interpretation seems particularly a feature of modern painting. Abstract painting is the attempt to have, in the ordinary sense, no content. Since there is no content, there can be no interpretation. Pop art works by the opposite means to the same result, using content so blatant. So what it is, it too ends by being uninterpretable. Oh, sorry. A different methodological understanding of the approaches needed to be taken in order for painting to become something that is. Katie Pratt is a London-based artist, abstraction painter, winner of the Joe Painting Prize in 2001. She stated, these new applications are beyond the realm of painting on canvas to attempt such contemporary methods. One must not only attempt art making from different outlooks, but also willingly let viewers interpret their works in ways never before experienced. Pratt herself, for instance, evolves her own painted patterns through a version of nature mimicry, applying small granulars of paint to a prepared surface under the guidance of initial rules of application, some of which may revise or cancel others, but in the process, that does not anticipate any particular visual result. Since graduating from the Goldsmith in the 1990s, process painter Alexis Harling has been exploring the fundamental property of paint as primary medium for his works. In layering a calculated grid of household gloss up on a base of oil paint, the surface is allowed to slide around on canvas, collapse and fall in upon itself, occasionally reaching a state of complete destruction as the work crumbles to the floor. No external tools are used to control the pictorial constructions of the painting other than the paint's disruption and collapse itself, allowing each work to acquire its own inbuilt logic and life over its making and drying time in the studio. I use the ordinary language of abstraction and aim to fundamentally change it, to harden it, and stretch it to breaking point. To do this, I have to change the way paints normally behave and functions. The way I make the works is a combination of strategy and control and irrationality and abandonment. Pictorialism has been an unexpected residue of the very lilac collisions of materials I use to make these paintings. I want to manipulate the core ingredients of painting, their damped attributes, through a type of subjective filter to see an urban entropy image come out the other ends. Okay, this one will be my last few years. I brought some students to Jogja, Jakarta in Indonesia. We have this gallery always tend to give us a very nice space. And I tend to bring students there for maybe 5 days, 4 nights. But they only have 24 hours to do their artwork before the opening. So, yeah. You can tell this is a volcano. I'm not going to talk much about the slide because we've got a lot about Jogja slide from there. Media exploration elevates one's senses of responsiveness between materials and the environments they are in. Through the process of experimenting and attempting to achieve a desired outcome, students inadvertently gain additional understanding about the materials of their choosing. There was always a desire to expose students to a different perspectives. Hence, opening a student up to a variety of media and processes help expand painting students' perception of different contexts beyond easel painting. You can see the space really big, and the one on the left-hand side is the gallery owner. Because it's a 24-hour exhibition, they have to work through late at night too, 10, 11, 12 midnight, because they can sleep in a gallery or something. So it's quite an intensive challenge. And also they do something which is not normally they do in the studio, because like burning woods, they are not allowed to, to burn. So they are doing things that which they do not normally do, so they go to this space. Okay. Okay, besides playing a role in offering students targets and deadlines throughout their studies, exhibitions offers the students the opportunity to develop an individual perspective. Okay, exhibition spaces provide intellectuals and physical space and technical resources where the transformation from a passive mode to an active form of learning can take place. Exhibitions provide students with opportunity to bring a body of work to conclusion, to develop a conceptual and aesthetic awareness and understanding of the relationship between audience and the artwork. In addition to that, there are also good platforms for exposing students to ongoing practice rather than completed works. Artworks have been overwhelmingly viewed as a representation instead of an ongoing activity. Students have been persistently exposed to completed artworks. I feel it is time that we educators educate them that it's not about polishing their works to the finest, but to create works that are imperishable to a different perceptions. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, to go back a bit. As an educator, it is important to create an atmosphere where the students can develop their potential. I believe each student is different, and it is our role to give them a sense of empowerment instead of imposition. On organizing trip to Jakarta annually, for instance, challenge the students' modus operandi of working in different spaces. With only 24 hours to set up a group of exhibitions, students of various nationality exhibit their impression of Yogyakarta or draw influence from their surroundings during the research trip. For starters, ideas and concepts are briefly discussed before being assigned the most suitable space. They are not allowed to start creating work until exactly 24 hours before the official opening. All they could do is to produce sketches or participate in any form of information gathering methods. Also, all materials must be acquired locally. So while sourcing for materials, students are compelled to build up their respective concepts simultaneously. They must try to produce work that corresponds with the space allotted and be mentally prepared for any final adjustments. This acts of gathering knowledge and experiences could be said that we are supporting a learner to be engaged in the process of going through and undiscover or obscure destinations. Process is fundamental elements of art. All works of art are a reflection of the conceptual physical material space. These 24-hour directives inadvertently shift the emphasis and significance of the works of art from its completed state to its processes of production. To students, this is a counterintuitive move. A notion of representational signification and meaning are heavily accentuated in the institution. So when we strive away commonly held preconception about art, various or possible alternative options will emerge. As John Cage once said, get yourself out of whatever cage you find yourself in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next sections will be the presentation of Professor Dr. Yarabs Amr Pulian. Please, if you're ready, please.
you like to introduce me again, or? No. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for give me opportunity to give a presentation in this conference. The title is Disruption Through Art and Design, but I'm not really talking about art and design as a product or as an activity, but what I'm doing in terms of art and design is trying to make a kind of conceptual model in terms of art practice or design practice. I try to make a kind of conceptual model about creativity in art and design. So, and how it relates to creative economy. So, I think today a lot of people are talking about disruption in terms of how technology, our new technology, can disrupt not only previous technology but also disrupt society itself. But my argument is disruption is not new in art or design discourses, because the aim of art and design is to produce new ideas, images, function, system, form, style, which has this kind of disruptive to economy, to society, to politics, and all of them. So this is my argument about what we call as a disruption. Many definitions about art and design, and all of them talking about newness, how newness is important in design, art and design. Creativity is mean newness. And also, not only art and design produce new ideas, but in terms of how this new idea have a kind of destructive effect to the previous ideas. So this is what is called as a creative destruction. So a new idea in art or design destruct firstly the previous ideas, the old ideas, but it also has disruption effect that is a kind of new life or change in society. That what I mean, the two phases of ideas in art and design, to destruct and also to disrupt. But I try to relate, to talk about how idea is related to what I call as a creative field. I think what is called as a creative field. I have done a kind of research about this. I try to make a kind of conceptual model in terms of creative economy. I mean, in what place, in what kind of creative activity, there must be 4 elements. What we call as 4 elements of infrastructure that have to be done, that have to make in order to develop a creative economy or creative industry. The first one is the field of expression. It means that art and design studio, we have to have a library, a good information system, so that designer or artists can develop their ideas. They have to have a good library and etc. But also we have to have a kind of field of production. The idea have to be produced, have to be realized, have to be materialized and something like that. So we have to have a kind of field of production. But also field of dissemination. In terms of art, we have exhibition, gallery, market, museum, and etc. But also creativity need kind of critic. So we have to have a kind of field of appreciation. My model actually was or were used by local government in Indonesia in trying to make a judgment about local area, which one is which has a more complete element. For example, in one place, they have this place have a creative people, but doesn't have production system, doesn't have dissemination system, doesn't have art critic. So the ideas is not developed there. My conclusion is that the more complex the element of this creative field, the more possible creative ideas were developed in a particular places. I have already trying this model in several regions in Indonesia, so this is my conclusion there. Then how it is related to innovative disruption. So this what we call as a creative disruption. Another term we used to use to describe what happened, disruptive innovations. Disruptive technology can be also mean to think technological disruption, but also social disruption. This example of social disruption in some places, particularly in my country. Quite a big trouble to social system, so cultural value, something, or even to ethical value. And you know, many people also talking today about the Industrial Revolution 4.0, disruptive technology, new value, and disruptive effect. This example, and Internet of Things. I think previously we used internet in terms of our, handphone, our computer, laptop, and etc. But today we can use our umbrella, which is connected to computer, and the umbrella can be a kind of a source of information, can talk to us and something like that. So this is what people talk about the Internet of Things. But this is not saying that I am, a proponent of this kind of new technology, this kind of technological determinism. The Internet of Things, you can say all things about this. Art and design destruction, it means that old product replace it by a new destructive effect of product, because new ideas, new product can give us a concept of value of simplicity, companion, accessibility, lower price, easy of use, ubiquity, which is not incapable of generating by a previous product. And this kind of value that has a kind of destructive effect to the market. This kind of condition example is, as I think everywhere we talk about Grab, car, Grab car, Go car, and something like that, which has a disruptive effect, including it's also happened in my country. We can talk about design disruption in the sense that new idea of design can disrupt not only previous ideas, but can disrupt the way society making things, doing things, how they communicate, relate each other, something like that. So that's what I say as design disruption. Art disruption also the same, because new technology produce new kind of art, new kind of aesthetic. And also in terms of disruption, in terms of technology or production, this is a new craft which are produced using laser cutting, rapid prototyping, and 3D printing, which produce new kind of aesthetic. But I believe that this kind of new aesthetics is not only aesthetic that we have to develop. We have to, try to find what's tradition, our tradition, teach us about what aesthetic is, how we use our hand, our body in terms of this technology. So I'm not a man that a proponent of this kind of new technology, because we have a tradition, because we have our body, we have our hand to produce something. But this is our choice. And how the implication of this kind of development, technological development, to art and design education. I mean, the disruptive effect of technology, art, or design can, in certain intensity, has a kind of what I call as education disruption. Because previously, in terms of education, we have a model of a face-to-face educational model. But today, we have a kind of learning which is technological mediated, and we have another kind of education there. Is it meant that our conventional model of art or design education no longer exists? I don't believe about that, because we still have face-to-face communication, face-to-face relation, our body, our mind, etc. I mean, technological mediated thing is only one choice among the others. The change is also in terms of creative field, because I still trying to develop my model. So we have this kind of model today, because we can see that disruption. We can see disruption in terms of art expression, in terms of production, what is called as a disruptive production, with the development of 3D printer, laser cutting, and etc., which replacing handmade thing. We have a disruptive in terms of information. Our umbrella maybe in the future have also information like our internet, our computer thing. And also we have a social disruption. I mean, generally, the development of new technology, digital new technology, has influenced deeply the model of our creative model of art and design, in terms of how technology is used in terms of expression, production, dissemination, and appreciation. Because today, art critic may be, it is happen in terms of social media, art critic. So this is the latest development of my model in terms of creative model of art and design, because of the influence of recent digital information technology. And what I think important also in terms of this model is because today the role of community in terms of art or design production is quite significant, particularly in my country. A lot of places which has been developed in order an artist, a designer, an engineer, a scientist work together to develop new ideas. So, I mean, today to produce new ideas is not only the work of an artist itself, but also the work of several kind of people, scientists, manager, maybe the man who doing something technical thing, they can go together and try to develop. So, for example, in Bandung, we have more than 10 what we call as a co-creative space, in which in this space everybody can come there and try to make some kind of brainstorming to give their ideas in order to make what I call as co-working ideas or co-creative ideas. This example of places in Bandung, in Indonesia, we have a kind of co-working space there, and there is no barrier between what is a designer, what is a user, because a user can also come to this place and try to propose their ideas. So I think it's the kind of democratic thing about design work today, particularly in my place in Bandung. And then this co-creations, these places in the right one is Bandung, in my place, and we try to develop, because I came from Technological University, Bandung Institute of Technology, and we have art and design program there, in Technological University. So what we trying to develop now is a kind of transdisciplinary model in terms of how science people, technological people, social, humanity people, and art and design try to go together or work together to develop a kind of common method. That's what we trying to develop in ITB as a transdisciplinary approach to develop a new idea in terms of art and design. And design thinking is a common language. So this is my conclusion. I'm just to say that in terms of co-working, we have to have a common language, and design thinking is this kind of common language. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oops. Next speaker is Professor Kunjana. Is it J. John? Kunjana, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Kanjana, that come from the King Mongkut Institute of Technology of Radkabang. So today I would like to talk about the experience that are related to my creation. Presently, several events that occur in my daily life and people allow me prove that experience lead to learning and become knowledge and comprehension. Especially the unpleasant experience from unexpected or uncontrollable incident that could be wrong by innocence and carelessness that become lesson in life, which will be carefully done next time. The past situations in life are all valuable experience. After I have been contemplated, I found that all challenging things are experienced to be learned and be handled at all times. My exhibition work that I present cannot be denied that experience is not an important part of thought and expression. One experience in my life, I had been interested in the loss from the global disaster, as well as the way that animal behavior showing their instincts. The primary and secondary data were studied in that creative work such as the news and information from newspapers and internet, my observation and researches on animal instinct. The series of artwork was presented in a solo art exhibition in Cross Project Gallery, Nagoya University, Japan, under the title Instinct Disaster. The show had received interestingly positive feedback. That's what probably Japan is one of the countries of the confront several disaster events. The study of severe disaster in this planet has also been studied for this artwork. Another part of this exhibition expressed animal instinct in its signaling the coming disaster. The process of creative work include painting, printmaking, and mixed media. I use a lithograph technique in the process. Silkscreen, another series of artwork under the same concept was the set that shows space on Earth and natural disaster. Exhibition at the Art Center Office of Academic Resource Chulalongkorn University. The creative process was black touch ink on wax sheet technique. As a result, the finished work are unexpected tastings and texture that we could not predict until everything is dry, which is similar to the unexpected disaster. According to previous series of artwork, I compare the concept of my work to John Dewey's idea, an American empirical philosopher whose concept is belong to the naturalism. Dewey said the experience are source of their knowledge. His term experience refers to the interaction between living creature and environment, which cause of action, transformation, prediction, and response that help determine the meaningful world to us. Besides, Dewey's concept indicates that experience creates art, and art connects with life, which cannot be separate from real-life experience. Therefore, the value of art is not up to the artwork that is created by humans, but the experience that are dynamic, unstoppable, as well as developing. It's continual learning and creating of artwork at the end. Moreover, the value of art is our abilities, is perceiving and communicating with people in different language and culture. Additional, it gives us energy, enthusiasm, and inspiring in all kinds of activities. According to all the concepts mentioned that affect creative thinking, my current work, they are telling the experience, things that are related to life, which have been transformed and predict. The artwork seeks for happiness from the simplicity of life, as Albert Einstein wrote the message, a calm and humble life will bring more happiness than the pursuit of success and the constant restlessness that come with it. The artwork series, Simpler Life is Happier Life, aim to focus on studying and seeking ways to be happy that reflect through the simple environment. The experience that bring the thought from the past to the present. Pay attention to each moment and the unexpectation that simply occur. no prior warning sign. Sometimes it might come to us in an easy way as we may not even notice it until it is gone. And I do not want to miss that moment. This series of my current work are different from my previous series in many aspects. For example, the sort of creative work, creative process, the final outcome, and emotional response. The point where there are connect and consistency are the interest in the nature and even between people. There are two parts in the series that are linked together into dimensional work, including black touch ink in wax sheet technique, and animation that is originates from two-dimensional painting. Both creative processes are completely fulfilled response to the intent expression. Creative artwork are my pleasure. Happiness is the ultimate desire of human. Starting with healthy physical and mental without influencing each other, acceptance, failure, self-exploration, and knowing yourself. When it's time to start, the start is to find things that are good. After found it, doing with affection. The outcome will be fine, optimistic, and it will make you happy. The concept of this work expand the proverb. Birds do not see the sky, fish do not see the water, and worms do not see carcass. The meaning is we neither see things that are mostly close to us, nor notice of its existence. People live with thought and emotion, and both happen in our mind, which are the closest to us, and we are often not noticed. For instance, hunger and wanting are similar, but if you truly consider you would know two different, that is, feeling and thought. This work say the simple happiness can be found in the peaceful place. However, peaceful place is made inconvenient at times. Occasionally, people want peacefully, but find it inconvenient and uncomfortable. Sometimes it takes time, and often peace and convenience are rarely be together. Consequently, opening up your mind to encounter what will be can make you happy with smile after the situation has gone. This word is represent the story of happiness that can occur in wherever you are. Since the present feelings come from your mind, like green tree that never rely on rain from the sky. Tree can be grown from taking water under the ground all year long. Human can create happiness by ourselves, not depend on external things. If we cannot find ourselves, we shall not know these potentials of us. This work tells a story about this life, nothing specific, requiring nothing from the world, having some faith in the planet, having enough to eat, have enough to stay, and enough boundary make us satisfied. We are very happy with new things that are often, after the time has passed, that things are no longer new. The result is less happiness afterward, and starting to find something new again. If you know sufficient, the happiness is still there and will be always be new.
Summer's been born without you. Empty talk and entertainment. Been yawning every minute or so, waiting for the phone to ring. What's gotten into me? Can anybody see? Oh, love's a crazy game. I don't know how to play to make you wanna stay. I'm too scared to say that I want you. I want you back.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Professor Dr. Dzu Haimi. Okay. And after he speaks, we will ask the speakers to gather at the front for questions. Thank you.
Okay, this okay. Move next slide. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good afternoon or evening now. Okay. First of all, I must thank the organizer, the University Sipalkon, and QS Summit here for inviting me. My talk will be on art history, methodology, a contextual experience in Malaysia. Briefly, the content will be, I will be giving you a brief background and a Euro-American perspective and non-Euro-American perspective, challenges in art and design education. I'll be giving you some examples what happened in our country, Malaysia, and then theoretical foundation and analyzing the artwork. I choose one work to analyze as a representative. Perhaps this can be something for us to think about, and I conclude. The subject of history of art in Malaysia universities can be considered young and was first introduced in the late 60s by two premier institutions, University of Technology Mara, which I'm from, Shah Alam, and University of Science Malaysia, Penang. The lecturers were mostly graduated from the Euro-American universities. In 1972 in USM and in 1982 in UITM, the subject of art history methodology was first introduced at undergraduate level. And in 1995, in the Faculty of Art and Design, UITM, we introduced MA in art history. And then in 2002, Faculty of Art and Design again, we introduced at PhD level. And 2014, a new department we established, the Department of Visual Culture Studies, and 2015, the first graduate in History of Art from USM 2005, and followed by UITM. In 1956 to 1957, before the independence, the concern of the Malays, the indigenous people, was the nation's cultural identity. Since 1957, the move for the cultural identity can be seen in many forms. The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport was given the task to achieve the goal. The very long period of exposure to colonial domination and influences on the visual arts has certainly contributed to the general disruption. The cultural tradition and influences has been uprooted and displaced by the Euro-American tradition. We have also here Piada Sal and Sulaiman Issa, problem faced by Malaysian artists who are beset with dilemma of having to employ idioms and styles which are not altogether indigenous to their own cultural tradition. Art historian, art has always been a historical event or phenomena, a sign of time, of its times, on index of historical, social, cultural, or individual growth, identity, change, or transformations. The literature on the developments of Malaysian art is a testimony to the disciplines of art history methodology. We base from what the written documents that we have. The complexity and dilemma faced by art historians and educators of art and design was vividly reflected in the ecosystem that supported the art scene. The writings was mostly journalistic, and the approach was on style, supporting the museum, the galleries, and the art market. And very strong European American influences on art and style, but lacking in meaning and soul of the nation. Examples of the writings of art exhibitions in the art exhibition is first the regional image maker is searching for the identity. Mid-50s and early 60s shows attempt at answering the spirits of the new nation. The expressionisms and abstract expressionism happens in early mid-60s. Again, the terminology is a very Western-centric terminology. The formalist influences the lyrical colorists in the late 60s, and the constructivist art, the new scene 1969 to 1970, reflects the stylistic influences and borrowing of terminologies from disciplines of the Western art. The cultural identity in question, what sparked this? The first National Cultural Congress in Malaysia in 1971, organized by the Malaysian government, addressing the issues on cultural identity, to search for an acceptable formula and commitment from Malaysian artists and designers to evaluate their attachment to the Euro-American centric in art in their drive to decolonize the artistic creativity from the supremacy of Western culture. Attempts in finding the solution, Piadasa and Sulaiman Issa, both from our faculty, provocative art exhibition towards a mystical reality in 1974, both of them proposed the Eastern philosophy as the basis for the theory and aesthetics and developments of the modern Malaysian art. The search for Malaysian identity in visual art was championed, again, followed after that, by the Faculty of Art and Design, UITM, addressing the issue in the Akar-akar Kesenian Pribumi dan Perkembangan Kini, the roots of the indigenous art and its present development in 1979. And then again, the art and design, in evaluating the art and design education, the curriculum in 1981. The determination was to design an art curriculum distilled from both the goodness and of the Western and Eastern knowledge on art within the purview stipulated in the Cultural Congress. The Euro-American perspective. T.K. Sabapati, a view of modern sculpture in Malaysia, he wrote in 1976, which used the Euro-American art theorist aesthetics in his critical analysis on the Malaysian sculpture. Sabapati advocates on the rich propositions of the concepts of vitalism, traceable to a number of sources from the Western scholars and artists. Ismail Zain, writing Seni dan Imajan, Arts and Image, he borrowed the theory by Erwin Farnowski's theory on the studies in iconology, a method of understanding and interpretations of meaning in visual arts, whether this theory can be used to talk about the local content. And another art historian is Mulyadi Mahmud books on Seni Lukis Modern Malaysia. Most of his writing, or more of that book, is more of an anthology of modern art in Malaysia, loosely arranged in chronological sequence of art activities in Malaysia. The approach was basically history of style, with a mixture of several other art history methods in the writing. As for the non-Euro-American perspective, we try to come up with whether we can come up with something that of our own. Well, Abdullah Muhammad, or well known for his name Nakula, book entitled Bentuk-bentuk Bangunan Masjid Kunci Memahami Kebudayaan Melayu, meaning the architecture, the mosque architecture as the key to understand the Malay culture in 1978. He suggested the Sufi cosmology and the concepts of divine essence as the foundations of Malay culture. I was given the 10 minutes time. Well, I've got to go very fast. And Zakaria Ali, he tried to come out with an outline as principles of Malay aesthetics for the traditional Malay art. That is, it has to be refined, usefulness, unity, opposite, symbolics, and meaningful. These principles can be basis for the analyzing, appreciating the traditional Malaysian art as well as the modern art. Challenges in art and design education. Art in some way a revelations of being or of a truth that is already present in the mind, in the culture, in the society. The work reveals, expresses, represents some prior meanings or content. The challenges in our art and design education is to harness the different approaches in the domain of art history and art theory and methodology. We envision a thinking doer, excellence in both theory and practice, know their roots, where they are from, and have an open mind to accept what's good from other parts of the world. Malaysia is a multiracial country, blessed with cultural diversity and heritage, and must transform without sacrificing its identity. It's not an easy task to broaden the spectrums of art history methodology on both the traditional and modern art, and in our case, history of Islamic art, which I'm in. My business is in history of Islamic art. To be able to use the Euro-American-centric methodologies that is acceptable to Islam. Criticism by the late Ole Graba, professors from Harvard University, in his account on Islamic theories of decoration that on an intellectually assumed and emotionally felt attitudes among art historians that the major issues of visual understandings are the ones elaborated in the grand traditions of the Western art. This problem is not easily resolved. Example in discussing this issue, Beauty in Multiplicity by Sulaiman Issa, vividly demonstrated the states of affair in the context of Islamic art in Malaysia. I just choose this. Okay, so before that, I will just have a fast show of the types of work. This is by Omar Basari, calligraphy. Okay. Ahmad Khalid, and the late Said Ahmad Jamal, our art laureate. This is by Sulaiman Issa and Sharifah Fatima Zubir, Ashim Hassan, and Fatima Chi, Rozaika Omar Basari. Those works are some examples of attempt to look for the cultural identity, yeah? And the theoretical foundation that we look into it is to base, at first, look at the theory of iconology by Erwin Fanowski in order to talk about the history of style, history of types, history of symbols, and the history of tradition. And based from the Western theory, what about Islam? The Al-Ghazali's approach, the human has 5 continuous processes to attain knowledge and should not stop at any level, meaning the sensory spirit, the imaginary spirit, the intellectual spirit, the discursive spirit, and the fifth one is the transcendental prophetic spirit. And this will, with that, we will be able to analyze, I hope, to come out with the history of Muslim art tradition, okay? Which is entirely different from what Fanowski's only gave physical senses, human mind, synthetic intuition, whereas in Al-Ghazali there are 4 steps for physical truth. Fanowski, there are 3 steps for physical truth. Al-Ghazali's approach is ideal, intellectual, material, factual, which is on the physical truth, and then to spiritual. Sensory spirit, imaginary spirit, intellectual spirit, discursive spirit, transcendental and prophetic, sensual knowledge, intellectual knowledge, physical truth, plus spiritual knowledge and spiritual truth. Towards the end, according to Islamic art, is the concepts of Tawhid, the oneness of God. And this is how we look into it. The process of producing artwork by artists, the green arrow from the artist, he himself to the audience, and from the audience to the artist. This is about creation and recreation, the process of gaining knowledge by the viewers. So the viewers must first look at the form and go with the form in the context. The context will give you the content. The content will get you to the belief in God. But for the artist, a Muslim artist must believe in God first before they go into content, and then context, where are you from, and lastly, the form. The form will come out from what's within, and you express. Analyzing the artwork, so this is how we look at it. For example, this is just an example, work by Sulaiman Issa, Beauty in Multiplicity in year 2000. So from on the left-hand side is the artwork, on the right-hand side is the analysis, a line drawing from the painting to see what is on the painting. And this is what we found. Yeah, the different symbolisms and the text, visual analysis of the painting. That is the Quranic text. Oops, sorry. Beauty in multiplicity is about unity of universal values through the concepts of beauty. Every civilization talk about beauty and shared by many cultures and civilizations. Symbols representing different cultures was used by Sulaiman Issa. The Aborigines mask, Leonardo da Vinci proportions of human figures, Chinese feng shui instrument Bagua, Arabic design and Quranic verse. The one on the left. Yeah. All those. These are all the symbolism used. And this is the Quranic text being cut off, and that's what is being presented in the painting, which is there. Okay? The Quranic verse was not completely comprehended by the artist. Out of ignorance, the verse was printed incomplete and was cut off from its original text. The Arabic script was simply used to represent Islam. You don't simply take anything symbol and say this is representing something. Unintentionally, he had changed the verse of the Quran and its meaning. The verse is from Surah Al-Isra, ayat 17, Surah 17 and ayat 69. It's being translated as, "Oh, do you feel secure that he will not send you back a second time to sea and send you a heavy gale to drown you because of your ingratitude, so that you find no helper therein against us?" That is the text that this is the full text. Oops. Now I'm enjoying this PowerPoint. The whole text, right? And it's being cropped out, and that's it. Have it over. And he used this as representing this is Islam, and then Arabic design as Islamic also, and then some Aborigines motifs, and then Bagua and all that, yeah, to present all the different civilizations. However, the text in Sulaiman painting is read because it's being cropped out. It read as "send you back and send you gale to drown you, ye find no." So it is meaningless. And what the worst thing that happened is that a misleading message and meaning from the incomplete verse of the Al-Quran. This is an incomplete meaning. Muslim believes the words of Allah are the mujizat. This is a miracle for the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So this cannot happen, actually. The symbolism used to represent Islam is superficial and inappropriate. The Quranic verse taken out of its original text signal wrong messages, seriously unethical and sinful. And if this can happen in Malaysia, it can also happen in the other parts of the world. For example, if you simply do anything about Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity, which will violate their beliefs, and this is not acceptable at all. The art history methodology then, in Islamic art, must contextually take into account the underlying social, cultural values, philosophy, and religious belief of the artist, audience, and the artwork. Islamic art in Malaysia must be Sharia compliance. I have a PhD student now finishing his thesis on the Sharia compliance. It's been published, I think, about 5 articles already in the journal. And there are things that, it's not only the artwork, it's not only the artist, the art materials, the colors, the pens, and everything. It has to be correct. It has to be clean, according to the teaching of Islam. So it's not just about the final product, but it's the artwork, the beliefs, the studios. The studio must be clean too, right? The material must be clean, and then you produce something that is good. Artists and art historians and art critics must be truthful. When you write, it has to be truthful, trustworthy. You have to deliver the right messages, and you have to be intelligent in the complexity of our artistic endeavor. That's all, my friends, for the late evening theoretical input. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will ask all of the speakers now to please come forward, reconvene at the chairs in front on the stage, and we will have some, hopefully, disruptive questions from the audience. Please, up onto the stage. While they're making their way up back to the stage, I have a couple of announcements to make. I was told that if you are planning on going on the boat ride tomorrow evening, you must reconfirm right after this meeting. Go out to the desk and reconfirm your desire to go on the boat ride tomorrow evening. They will give you a yellow, a pink envelope that will assure your admission onto the boat ride. If you don't pick it up, you will not get to go. And then the next announcement is that we begin tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp. And I was told that those are the announcements that I have to make. We'll go up to the front now and wrap this up. Okay. Did they have their speakers? I'd like to begin by asking, are there questions from the audience first? Please. No questions? This could be a very, very brief session. Okay, I'll begin with a few questions. That's my job. No, there have to be questions. There must be questions. I've forgotten what they were. Disruption. Let's go all through here. The point of disruption for each of you in your talks is really quite interesting. In some ways, your disruption is non-disruptive, actually, very peaceful and a simple life, and this is not disruptive. But in a sense, that by itself is a radical notion that we do not live in a world of constant confrontation, and that's much appreciated. I was intrigued by the notion of history, the creation of an Islamic art history as a radical procedure. Could I ask you to say something more about how that very act of writing and art history is disruptive. There's a mic up there for you. Okay. I think it should be said.
Okay. Most of our art historians are trained from the Western universities. We learn of how to write art history. And most of the writings are on the first level, if you look at Fanowski's theory, on the first levels of writing art history, which is history of style. But we are here on this part of the world, we are talking about our own heritage, which is equally very important, which can enrich globally, which can bring new ideas, new approach, new ways of looking at things. So perhaps what I'm trying to say here is that not only for Islam, but in each of our Southeast Asian country or Asian countries, there are local genius that we forgot that they also contributed many things in the art production. And the way we look at something that's beautiful is different from the West looking at what is beautiful, and is equally valid. So in Islam, because we also believe in our religion and in the Quran, so whatever is manifested in the Quran is the guidance to the Muslim. So there are many things in the script that we can bring it out, yeah, and say that this is another way of looking at things. And then not only that, and being an art historian, when we write, we should actually not only look at the artworks, but we have also to study the artist himself, whether he is a good Muslim or not. Because if he's not a good Muslim, then he's not actually producing an Islamic art. He is just producing he's producing art which is non-Islamic. And for us to put that kind of work as Islamic, since he is a Muslim, is not appropriate. So we now try to come up with what actually is the Islamic compliance in art. And perhaps that will be another solution of trying to understand why is it from the first Hijrah until now, yeah, from the 7th century until now, the beauty in Islamic art still stands, and people are doing research after research. Mm-hmm. But the research that we are doing are looking at methodologies which are non-Islamic methodologies, and we cannot get the answer. If we get the answer, we are talking about beauty on a surface level, but not what is internal, yeah, what is in depth, the levels of what actually beauty. And that is the thing that will survive over years of civilization. This is the thing that I'm trying to drive in. I hope I'm
Okay, so relative though to Mr. Yap, I was going to say relative to what he has just said, yeah. How does that work in terms of the art and design education for you going forward?
For me, I think when we teach, I think a few things we actually have to kind of like avoid. Maybe one thing is politics, if we can, or the other thing is religions. Because sometimes, as as Jesus said, like sometimes you probably put something into the wrong, place. And also, it's very hard for us to advise, what to do and what to go next, particularly relate to religions.
And what is next in your mind?
They might find ways to work around it, but I think there's no solutions because we are not the expertise from this area.
Okay. I wanted to also ask about there was much interest in the creative economy. On one hand, we speak of new aesthetic sensibilities, new histories going forward. How do we make that work in the economy, the creative economy, as you alluded to?
you mean how disruptions concepts useful in creative economy?
Yes.
Okay. So,
As you say, disruption is constant. Disruption is not new, you said.
yeah, yeah. Because for me, the interpretation of disruption cannot be separate with destruction. This is my interpretation about that. I mean that through art and design, because my background is design actually. In design, one product ideas destruct the previous one. But on the other hand, this idea make unrest the previous product in the market, for example. So disruption for me can be mean in terms of a relationship between a new product and a previous one, but also the relationship between a new use of this product and the previous use. So this is why I talk about disruption in terms of social aspect of design as well. And also disruption in terms of production. It means that, new digital technology, production technology can replace the handmade thing, but also can replace in terms of the community which, in the past make this handmade thing. So disrupt a product, disrupt a community, disrupt also a thinking thing about the product itself. So I mean, my interpretation about disruption, I think is, a total thing, not only disruption of technology, but also product, but also a community or people that making this product as well.
That's an interesting moment because you speak of technology versus things made by the human hand, I think to a certain extent. And my understanding is that things cannot be perfect because only God can make things perfect. But what about technology and machines? Everything can be perfect, no? Is that disruptive?
Yeah, I think I think two different things.
Okay.
The perfection, the perfection created by technology, and the perfection created by human brain, human body, and humanity as whole. So I think it's two different things.
Okay, I was just intrigued by it because I collect rugs, and rugs nowadays, the old rugs, will have imperfection built in, But I wonder about machine-made rugs or textiles and such. It's a different way forward. Actually, I wanted to come back to you and your simple life. Is it always good?
Yeah, there is simple life that is good for everyone. I think everyone needs a simple life and makes you happy.
It's not possible to be unhappy with a simple life. I'm sorry, I just felt like being confrontational for a moment here. Permiso, excuse me. Okay, are there other questions from the audience just now? None. We will put a wrapper on this then. We'll wrap this up right now. Thank you so much for speaking. Thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure for me to be helping with this. And again, the announcements, I'll repeat. Please go and reconfirm if you're going on the boat ride so you can get your pink envelope that will guarantee admission. And we start tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thanks again. Bye-bye.